The name I go by is Sophia Hayes. I am 39 years old. Dated. The day that my grandfather's will was executed was read. My parents stared at me at the same time. I and made an attempt to delete me. I had been seated on this big table that has been polished, hands. I was folded so tightly that my knuckles turned cold, while my sister might be seen smiling across from me in a clothing designed by a designer, already behaving like the space was hers to own. The lawyer was exonerated, his throat, and began with what I intended to say. Parents referred to the primary component of the maybe. During that time, my mother leaned in, all sweetness, and the announcement was made upfront that $15 would be coming to my sister through the inheritance of my grandfather's estate. I am father slid a stack of documents in the direction of. Then everyone murmured, "Here she is. Congratulations," as if it were some type of celebration, according to the conclusion of a fairy tale. That's when he turned to me. The absence of a folder, a check, and even a token. The only thing he did was shrug and say, nearly, "I am bored." The sum of $15 million is given to your sister, as you, Sophia, have the ability to earn your own share. It was Grandpa's wish that you avoid having anything at all. I nodded, and my mother continued, "He stated that he had finished dealing with you. You made the decision. You prioritize your career over your family. This is what he has to say." I desired. I was aware of the tilt of the room, but I did not argue, did not cry, and did not lend them anything. The fulfillment that comes from witnessing myself break. I looked at the table and listened to what was being said. Individuals to change the narrative of a man who had been my most ardent supporter in the past. In addition to that, exactly when my grandfather's own children were born. After pushing his chair back, the attorney stood up, as well as stating that there was a third document, a secret that my parents had kept hidden and sealed. I have never been permitted to view. That is what he said was only intended to be read when everyone was there, and especially when they were in the same room together. Indeed, I was there. Is that something you've ever done? Whereas your own family made the decision that you were insignificant, and you pondered whether or not you should leave or wait to hear the one secret that is being kept. Everything might be blown to pieces by it. Since the following is what that attorney read next, the reason why my mother ended up lashing out at me before each and every person. My name is Daniel Park. The attorney representing the grandfather did not show any signs of flinching after my mother yelled out that there was no longer the second document. His justification was that he glasses and slid a hefty packet that was sealed, took it out of his briefcase and placed it on the table, like a bomb on the table, presented by Mr. Arthur Hayes. Directions that were very specific, he claimed, calmly. It was necessary to keep this confidential, not to be disclosed to anybody, even the day his will was read. Up to that point, his son, with all members of the immediate family, Sophia, his granddaughter, deserves special mention. The color disappeared for Mom. It's my father. Attempting to shrug it off, Grandpa said, "I'm sorry." It appears that they were perplexed near the conclusion because there was no requirement to read anything at all besides that. Daniel chose to disregard him, shatter the seal, and contains a number of pages that were included in my. The meticulous calligraphy of this grandfather and a legal document. I could hear the pounding of my heart. Initially, I had a hard time hearing him, but after a while, as if the room had been shattered, the words sliced through. "The silence has been broken. To Sophia, my granddaughter at large." It was written by Daniel Hayes. "I leave full interests in Harbormind that are under control. Analytics is the business that I have been silently constructed and financed during the course of the previous, for a number of years, in addition to my own personal accounts for investments that are affiliated with it, independent of my joint funds and held separately in conjunction with my son," he continued to explain. There was no insignificant aspect to HarborMind undertaking. It was an expanding technology firm, developed around an artificial intelligence and based in Atlanta platform to assist in the management of small enterprises, the marketing, the cash flow, and the inventories, decisions. It already has joint ventures in place, contracts, and revenue. It was worth that much, in excess of the $15 million that my parents had. I have just given it to Chloe. It's finally my dad. Stopped making a smirk. This is not conceivable, he said, unintentionally blurted out. Not even close to knowing how to use his mobile device. He did not create a technological enterprise. Daniel turned his head to stare directly at him. To wit, Mr. Hayes, he discovered that he was looking for respect, expertise obtained from outside sources. His investment was in the individuals, and he commanded that everything be done, stay in his mind and stay connected to HarborMind, solely by name. Hence, there would be no uncertainty regarding his goals and objectives. When my mother spoke, she leaned in closer. Precise. During that time, he was not in his right mind. That was done by him. He was of advanced age. He was suffering from illness. Was failing to remember things. According to him, Sophia intended to avoid any interaction with him. It is Daniel's expression became more tense. It is addressed in this, also in this case. His eyes were down to the ground, and continued on the page. To my complete knowledge, it has been read that Mark and Linda have hidden, taking Sophia away from me, moving our plans around, conveying to me that she is too preoccupied with her huge urban life, and letting her know that I am too exhausted, either too perplexed, to recognize her. She has informed me that she is embarrassed by this family, which she does not even bother to call. She does not care about anything. I do not have faith in that is. Her messages have been brought to my attention. Away with you. I have received all of my calls, been redirected. They have put up a lot of effort. The presence of Chloe in front of me with cameras and grins while describing what Sophia is looking for, nothing to do with an elderly person, there, in my throat, shut down completely. Every single one of the texts that I sent a message that was never answered. The phone calls, that left a message on the voicemail system. There were instances when my mother stated that my grandfather was at a doctor's appointment, sleeping, or elsewhere. I am having a hard day. Whenever I exerted an effort to return home with little or no warning, he continued to. Reading up on it, moreover, I have seen that I have transferred money from my joint accounts into credit cards and accounts with personal information controlled, utilized to pay for trip expenses by Mark and Linda, cars and costs related to lifestyle. That is largely for Chloe. They were never used. With me, we discussed it. When I inquired about it, to my inquiries, I was informed that I had already given approval, despite the fact that I had not done so. My age may be a factor, but I am not an idiot. The mother jumped to her feet with such lightning speed that it was a chair that squeaked across the floor. "You are telling a lie," she yelled angrily. "He signed." Everything was taken care of by us, and we saw to it. Whilst she was away, she provided him with everything. In Chicago, pursuing an ambition of working with computers, it was as if she were pointing a finger in my way. To put it another way, I was the issue here. Being was the insult that was made. My father his voice was cooler, and he had a different angle. "Papa, it is obvious that you wrote that under pressure. He is prone to episodes of paranoia, as you are aware. It is at the very end. The public becomes skeptical." Daniel did not make any movements. He never raised his voice, but each and every syllable sounded weighty. It is Mr. Hannon who pays. The drafting and signing of this codicil took place in my office, which is located at, his doctor claiming that he was completely healthy, to be capable. Regarding those records, I am ready to present them, if it is required. Chloe's mascara was on the other side of the table, beginning to have a streak. She clung to his hand, packet with her 15 million coins as if it were possible, disappeared if she were to relax her hold on it. Then, "What is it?" Her tone was trembling as she yelled. "He is merely provides her with some non-specific company and creates the impression that we are thieves. I made use of to take care of him. I was present at that time. I made a post regarding he is. Individuals cherished our videos." Her choice of words struck me more strongly than I had anticipated, wished to acknowledge. I was removed from the lives of my own grandfather. When she was alive, caused him to feel scorn for him. I was fixated on. While Daniel wished there was more, he was in need of indication that I had not merely dreamed each and every single email, every single phone call, and every single attempt I made. He let out a sigh, went back to the previous page, and after that, I turned my gaze once more to my parents. Arthur was aware that there would be opposition, and he stated it was already in his mind that you would challenge his recollection, his capabilities, and his decisions. Further instructions were left by him, besides the further evidence that I will present if this case is brought before a judge. My mother's, currently, the hands were noticeably shaking, took hold of my father's arm. "Do it, Mark. There is something—" She made a hissing sound. "We can't allow this to happen. Take a stand. He is unable to simply rewrite everything. On this, we reached a consensus." It was the first time that my father couldn't come up with a swift response. He was fixated on putting the documents in front of Daniel as if he were when I was completing the calculations, I also realized that, late. He realized that the odds were not in his favor. After that, sat there and listening to all that was being said. From it, fragments began to appear in my head, joining together in a snap. The omitted, canceled at the very last minute due to holidays/vacations. How my parents have always done it, insisted on taking care of any banking matters in order to make things are made simpler. The way in which Chloe paraded her travels, fancy luggage, and a lack of regular employment to provide support for it. Perhaps you believe that you would have yelled, flipped the table, or thrown anything. At that very moment, stormed out. But the only thing I did was sat a little more upright and waited for their turn as a result of a question that was burning in the back within my own thoughts. Given that this was it was the beginning of what Grandpa had concealed. What other things were going to come from them? The fact that they were unable to communicate their out of the way? As soon as Daniel stated my name, my grandmother had been able to view his texts. Evaporate? Then it shattered something that was loose, and I remember it. Then all of a sudden, I was not in, "That meeting room is no longer available." I had returned. Whilst I was in Savannah, my t-shirt was soaked in sweat, whereas my sister Chloe was sitting on the front porch. With a fresh new dancing costume, she spun about in it is the driveway. She was being filmed by my mother, by use of her mobile device, saying, "Give me a spin, baby. This is something that followers adore." It was my father who loaded the trunk with suitcases for their vacation to Orlando over the weekend. I was there, 14, clutching a leaflet for a summer coding training program, spend the night at the community college. In addition, when I made an attempt to hand it to my mother, but she only just barely accepted it, examined it briefly. "We have previously informed you of that," she stated. "It is too expensive." Her eyes widened. "Chloe is still in the picture, perhaps the following year. On top of that, you devote a sufficient amount of time to that computer that you own. Take a walk outside or do something." It was a flyer that she pushed back, in my possession, as if it were a piece of junk mail. There was a pattern to that. Chloe's money is needed. dancing contests in order to showcase her ring light for the sake of her brand, more than one pair of... This is Arthur. In the afternoon of one day, he appeared in his rusty pickup truck, which was in a damaged state. Laptop computer. He had purchased from a private seller, a store that sells office supplies. That was a slow time. And yet, it is flawless. It is said that the case has been scratched. The CPU is quite old, he informed me with a eye wink. However, I believe that it just indicates that it has already occurred. It can tell stories. Now it can assist you in writing. Yours to keep. He placed it on the table in the kitchen like it was constructed out of glass. My mother put a frown on it and mumbled something to himself. More time in front of screens. But Grandpa, disregarding her, his efforts to bring me began, in the same manner that other grandparents bring books, candy. Python and data analysis, an introduction. Excel should be used by owners of small businesses. It was humorous to him that they were dummies. Initially, he had very little knowledge of any of it, but he eventually could be found sitting next to me in the same kitchen, reading the chapters aloud while sitting at the table. In any case, by asking questions and forcing me to, what exactly was a loop and what exactly was a data set, was the meaning of the term cleaning data up. He will give a solemn nod, then look over his position. So in English, kiddo, you say, while wearing spectacles, in what way does that assist someone who is running up? Is it similar to mine? My parents rolled over, and whenever they walked by, their eyes would look at them. As far as I can tell, she will never actually use that. Life, my mother would say to me. The dancing that Chloe does gives her a certain charisma. This is pertinent. On a particular evening, I vividly recall that Chloe was trying on different clothing for a video shoot. The sequins spread out across the floor of the bedroom and as she was being zipped up, my mother was telling her, wow, she was very stunning. I entered the room, held a printout of a little while expressing excitement. I had created a chart that demonstrated how Grandpa's, if the store were to reorder, it may save money. Particular things only once a month as an alternative on a weekly basis. When I said, look, but if he follows this, he might save over $800 each year just on screws and nails together. It's my father. Looked at it for a fraction of a second and then, that's lovely, honey, but you can't do that, she said. Make a profit using fictitious mathematics from a young person. And with a chuckle, Chloe exclaimed, wow, nerd, attack, and then returned to her practice sessions. Stances. To tell you the truth, Grandpa did look at his it is. He took me to his house the following day, retail establishment, led me through the aisles and aimed towards the shelves in the room. Show me again, it was said by him. If we were to make any changes to we stood there between the paints, asking, order? My weathered face, together with cans and power tools, sheet of paper, and he listened while I was speaking, a consultant that he had recruited for the job. In the future, after giving me a pat on the crown of my head, he said, the rest of us fail to recognize patterns that you notice. It's important that you don't forget that, Sophie. I went to a local one when I was 17 years old, just on a whim, a hackathon. There was a reward for a small scholarship and a little, it is acknowledged, nobody's life will be altered. I created a primitive dashboard that was of assistance to tracking which items are sold at the hardware store, which seasons are the finest, and which ones are the best. I did nothing but sit there. It was simple, unattractive, and coded and kept together by duct tape, but only at half. It was successful. I distinctly recall standing on that war blazer that I purchased that did not fit properly, exiting a secondhand store, looking around at the crowd, my mother and father. Indeed, they had pledged to attend. They were so proud that they said, come. At the time when my name was announced by the organizers and I accepted the offer by stepping forward. Certificate with the sole individual celebrating, audible enough to be heard over the politeness of it was my grandfather who was applause. He was in the as he clapped like he was wearing his old plaid shirt attended the Super Bowl games. Following that, he embraced me so tightly that I could hardly take a breath, remarked, "You have just constructed something beneficial, Sophie. Do you comprehend what I'm saying? If you are able to assist one store, you will be able to assist others. 10. You can help a tenth if you are able to aid 10. 100. I was brought over to the judges by him in order to make, I will explain my project once more, peppering it to me with inquiries such as, could this possibly tell a man who is on the verge of expending all of his energy on mix for concrete? What about the time when paint is applied? When does it go on sale? Could it alert him in advance of, is it time? They sent me a picture of myself via text message. When Chloe was in the mall on the same evening, proudly displaying a brand new pair of sneakers, while writing, "I'm sorry, honey, it was traffic." Irrational. In the future, we will celebrate. By no means. I did it. The only thing that we did was remain the same. Over and over again. Dynamic. It is Chloe's, there were balloons attached to the milestones. Going out to eat. Along with my accomplishments, came a nice job that was flung over the shoulder. What's more, Grandpa continued to chat throughout the meantime regarding concepts. Let's say there existed a device that informed smaller merchants of the appropriate time to place their next order. Have they used up all of their paint? He inquired about it. Suppose you had the ability to tell a bakery which cupcakes were the source of their financial success. Just appeared to be lovely. At the table he would sit, subsequent to the shutting of his store's counter. Please open the ledger and inquire about my thoughts regarding the various numerical values. When I was there, I was under the impression that he was merely making fun of me. This small experiment sounds far more significant than, indeed they were. Now I had a better understanding. He was being able to think like a proprietor, like someone who has devoted his entire life to the pursuit of, with the store stocked and the bills paid. My parents described me as strange and very intense, too preoccupied with matters that no one cares about pertaining to. With a chuckle, Chloe informed me that I would arrive in a place where you are alone in a dark room with a group of people, of screens that were disliked by everyone, data individuals. The grandpa informed me that I was going to alter the way in which individuals manage their businesses. He began to make references to items such as various platforms, as well as partners and investors. There were words that seemed to be too big for our small kitchen of the town. At one point, I made a joke that the meticulous calligraphy of this grandfather and a legal document. I could hear the pounding of my heart. Initially, I had a hard time hearing him, but after a while, as if the room had been shattered, the words sliced through. The silence has been broken. To Sophia, my granddaughter at large. It was written by Daniel Hayes. I leave full interests in HarborMind that are under control. Analytics is the business that I have been silently constructed and financed during the course of the previous, for a number of years, in addition to my own personal accounts for investments that are affiliated with it, independent of my joint funds and held separately in conjunction with my son, he continued to explain. There was no insignificant aspect to HarborMind undertaking. It was an expanding technology firm, developed around an artificial intelligence and based in Atlanta platform to assist in the management of small enterprises, the marketing, the cash flow, and the inventories, decisions. It already has joint ventures in place, contracts, and revenue. It was worth that much, in excess of the $15 million that my parents had. I have just given it to Chloe. It's finally my dad. Stopped making a smirk. This is not conceivable, he said, unintentionally blurted out. Not even close to knowing how to use his mobile device. He did not create a technological enterprise. Daniel turned his head to stare directly at him. To wit, Mr. Hayes,
he discovered that he was looking for respect, expertise obtained from outside sources. His investment was in the individuals, and he commanded that everything be done, stay in his mind and stay connected to Harbor Mind, solely by name. Hence, there would be no uncertainty regarding his goals and objectives. When my mother spoke, she leaned in closer. Precise. During that time, he was not in his right mind. That was done by him. He was of advanced age. He was suffering from illness. Was failing to remember things. According to him, Sophia intended to avoid any interaction with him. It is Daniel's expression became more tense. It is addressed in this case. His eyes were down to the ground and continued on the page. To my complete knowledge, it has been read that Mark and Linda have hidden, taking Sophia away from me, moving our plans around, conveying to me that she is too preoccupied with her huge urban life, and letting her know that I am too exhausted, either too perplexed, to recognize her. She has informed me that she is embarrassed by this family, which she does not even bother to call. She does not care about anything. I do not have faith in that is. Her messages have been brought to my attention. Away with you. I have received all of my calls, been redirected. They have put up a lot of effort. The presence of Chloe in front of me with cameras and grins while describing what Sophia is looking for, nothing to do with an elderly person, there, in my throat, shut down completely. Every single one of the texts that I sent a message that was never answered. The phone calls, that left a message on the voicemail system. There were instances when my mother stated that my grandfather was at a doctor's appointment, sleeping, or elsewhere. I am having a hard day. Whenever I exerted an effort to return home with little or no warning, he continued to. This has absolutely nothing to do with this is what she stated, as I was constructing a profession, according to Mom and Dad. Grandfather requested for assistance. They explained to me that it was all about, this is the plan. With an expression of desperation, she looked at, these are my parents. As soon as the moment came, a glimmer of something appeared in her eyes as if she had an abrupt realization that she might be out on a precarious pedestal by herself. I took a deep breath and continued on it. Where are the emails, exactly? I inquired about. Those that I sent out a request to. Come see. At various points, I made the offer to bring my laptop and demonstrate to him what I was working on. You are, from his point of view as the answer, you are the mother. Grandpa is proud of you, but he is not proud of you, he wrote. Does not comprehend such kind of material. Simply concentrate on living your life, my dear. The mother tapped her hand firmly on the table. So, protecting an elderly person's property is now considered a criminal offense. Here is peace, she yelled. When you made your decision, you did not see him crying. A legal school in Chicago is preferred here. You failed to listen to him comment that he did not recognize you. After that, Daniel enunciated his words clearly. He stated, Arthur never did anything to deserve it. I was informed that he did not recognize you. Certainly, he did make that abundantly plain to me, Sophia. It seemed to him that his relationship with you was being handled on his behalf, my father said. Ridiculed the idea. Managed is what you do for an organization, he said. I have an elderly parent. You ought to be aware that you draft enough people as a result, they become paranoid. They conceive of it. It's a conspiracy. According to them, everyone is taking something from them. When Daniel reached for the papers, he set them back inside his briefcase once more. Not this time. He pulled out a flash drive that was little and black. Put it down on the table in the middle of us. I had believed that you might say that. In response, he said, This is the reason why he requested that I record a video when we were putting together this coddle. It is the accompanied by a date, a timestamp, and a current date, the statement made by his physician. You are able to intend to imply that he lacked the necessary skills. You ought to have a look at what that appears to be. I am the hand of the mother burst forth. You are not the playing a clip that has been modified just to defame us. She made a hissing sound. Please turn off that device. This is Daniel, never even gave her a passing glance. He hooked in the storage device into a compact laptop, the what the paralegal had brought in, which turned a screen that would allow everyone to see, and proceeded to play. The visage of my granddad. The screen was packed with older and thinner people, in comparison to what I recalled, but his eyes were unambiguous. The same conference was attended by him, donning an ironed shirt. We were now in the room, shirt buttoned down, hands folded in a relaxed manner, in his lap, where he said, "All right, Arthur." What was spoken by a younger version of Daniel's voice, out of sight. "Just let me know in your own words." Grandpa took a deep breath and asked, "Why are you here?" "My name is Arthur Hayes," he introduced himself. I have made the decision to alter my will because I have arrived at the realization that my kid and she has been cheating me out of my trust in ways that I did not give their okay. Money has been seen to disappear, accounts for which I had never given my consent. Whenever I inquire, I am informed that I am perplexed. After that, he gazed directly into the camera. I am not perplexed either. I am getting on in years, but both I am aware of who I am and what I have accomplished, desire it to be sent to. Under his breath, my father mumbled another thing. Even when there was a breath, the video continued. Continuing, Grandpa said, I adore each and every one of he mentioned his grandchildren. But just one of them, the way that my mind operates, is shared with them. Numbers are something that Sophia is familiar with. To her, is familiar with several systems. She erected a little item on her computer that was of assistance to a store similar to mine, and I never once boasted about it, regarding it. He laughed in a low voice. No, Mark never attended to me when I was discussing business. Also, but Sophie is more concerned about her appearance. Sophie is attentive. It stung in my chest. I had no idea that I was here, waiting for the room to start before I let out a breath to spin once again. On the screen, Grandpa's name is on it. The look became more gloomy. I, too, have witnessed. He explained how they managed to keep her away from me. Cancelled visits and calls were received. It is communicated to me having a career in a major city keeps her extremely busy. Ruth then informs me that Sophia is the one who drives to the very bottom, and my son sends her on her way, starting from the driveway, home. And I am aware that it is. This is the concept of control. Those are the fears that the two of us are going to discuss and compare narratives. His rage caused him to shift in his seat, his features flashing across his face in a manner that I saw hardly infrequently. If any of them are observing, this indicates that they are challenging my position. He announced the choice. It denotes that they are, once more, attempting to take what does not belong to you. To them, they belong. First, let me to make things clear. Every single share, analytics from the Harbor Mind, for Sophia, each and every account that is relevant. No, not only because she is my fave, but also because this is the only thing that she is able to use it for, where it is intended to be used. He took a momentary pause, his eyes shimmering all over. Take care of the younger males, to assist the people who never had the opportunity to run shops as I did, these instruments. It was Daniel's voice that reemerged. It is the recording. Are you going to make this decision made under the influence of anyone else? That was the expression that Grandpa gave him. Inquiry offended him. It is the only pressure. It seems to be time.
He lost his temper. This is what I am making. This option, right now, while I still have the chance, they will be able to persuade some of them if I wait, in order for the doctor to dismiss me as senile and whatever they put in front of me, I will sign it here. I would like this to be documented before that occurred. His face was frozen on the screen, and then it went away, dark in color. Nobody made a sound. Only the low sound could be heard, with Chloe's voice and the hum of the air conditioner breathing that is not even. I have my mother's mascara. Had given up completely, with dark streaks showing, her cheeks were being cut through. She took a glance at it. Seemed as though my father was meant to have some legal way out of this situation. If there is a legal loophole or witty remark that would reverse everything we had previously done, all of which was just observed. He did not move his gaze from the screen that is blank, fingers tapping a frenzied rhythm. On the table there is rhythm. It is possible for you to prosecute that, he said. Lastly, the voice, however, it does not make any changes during the years that we were responsible for his care. The jury will confirm that. They are going to see what we made a sacrifice. Through a hushed voice, Daniel shut down the laptop. Click. The challenge is open to you at any time, as he stated. Will. With that being said, the video, the records pertaining to finances, as well as physicians, a declaration concerning the capabilities of Arthur will be included in the official record of the public. A fleeting glance was cast in Chloe's direction. Life as an influencer was dependent on the public perception of something, and taking into consideration the characteristics of even when we have documented transfers, there may be queries that go beyond the scope of the aforementioned. Probate court is available. In that very instant, my father's fingers caught the ceased tapping at the precise moment when my mother, in the moment I finally stopped yelling, and the moment I noticed that this was not simply about who was successful. In what way? This marked the official start of anything that extends much further. Moreover, for once, they were the ones that one need to be concerned about. What happened after that, a conflict between my parents, promised didn't end up happening in any dramatic way. Trial by jury, with witnesses crying on the witness stand. Take a stand. After the codicil had been submitted by Daniel, as well as the video and the bank records, it is there the bluff was unable to withstand the pressure of quantities. They had no ability to cry or charm. The way around the area, there were gatherings that took place. In a nutshell, it was a lawyer they hired. Entered the first meeting room that was available. Audacious and self-assured, yet also shaking hands. Difficult, assuring my folks that they should not be concerned, that items like this are always open to negotiation. In response to the initial revelation, he left the room, hearing and appearing to be in need of a more powerful drink, as well as a distinct purchaser. Court of Law hired a forensic accountant to attend the meeting, via the course of many transactions on my accounts held jointly by the grandfather, and each and every expenses incurred by the family that had padded the lifestyle of my parents and Khloe Kardashian's brand began appearing in spreadsheets and other documents, exhibitions rather than stories on Instagram. The judge did not care about the number of videos Khloe had posted of herself grasping Grandpa's hand, whether it be the number of emotional captions she'd written about moments they should be treasured. Regarding the power of attorney, my father was concerned, was accustomed to transferring funds out of those accounts for non-specific personal information. Expenses incurred. Timing was everything to him. Transfer services immediately prior to private vacations, just before the introduction of a brand new SUV, Chloe's sponsored excursions, which were nevertheless able to paid in part with money that belonged to Grandpa. He has regarded the fact that when Arthur was still alive, emails and withdrawals were called into doubt.
was missing without a trace. When there is, counsel made an attempt to explain that Arthur may have, Daniel gave his verbal approval by saying everything. The video was slid over the table, and this was the end. I watched the portion of the video where my grandfather gazed directly into the eyes of the and stated, "I have seen money" camera and said, "my accounts," with which I have never agreed to depart to. When I inquire about something, I am told that I do not, in fact, find myself perplexed. There wasn't much room left after that, to be honest, to turn around. The enclosed medical report is as follows. The file provided evidence that he had been examined, regarded as capable at the time he altered his will. In its report, the accountant outlined the process, the misappropriation of funds, in columns that did not show concern for the emotions of others. Court of Law performed the codicil validation and confirmation, cognitive analytics from Harbor Mind, and the accompanying, in the same manner as Arthur, accounts were mine wanted to be. To add insult to injury, the judge issued a demand to my parents to pay back what they had. More funds had been removed from the joint accounts. There will be penalties and interest. There was none of them, it is. Their lifestyle was a reflection of their wealth would not ever be exhausted. I even snort to myself. They needed to sell in order to start making a dent. The massive home in Savannah that was adorned with white columns and a lovely lawn my mother used to cultivate columns in a lovely lawn my mother used to pose on for photographs taken throughout the Christmas season. The dwelling, our legacy, was once referred to her. They made a sale. The pair of luxury automobiles that they enjoy parking, merely to be seen, in the driveway of the house. Some of the props that Chloe utilized back in the day in her vlogs about my life. The word spread as a result. Undoubtedly, it did. Little towns are nasty and wicked, effectively in that manner. Same neighbors as before, who at one time gushed about Linda's exquisite taste in decor, there was a murmuring at the supermarket store for information on mishandled funds and financial abuse of an elder. Folks who were formerly admired them, today I am crossing the street to avoid having awkward conversations. I was Mark, whilst he was on leave from his position at a logistics company is currently being evaluated, and that became apparent in a short time. I was fired for a good reason. No business in the area was interested in the chief financial officer whose currently the estate of the father was trapped in a misbehavior in financial matters that is public record. The fall of Chloe was both quieter and noisier at the same time. Doors with a low level of noise. She was not allowed to see behind the scenes. In a noisy manner, how the first screenshots and videos were created, available on the internet. Those that dug out the old videos of Grandpa in her feed and suddenly became aware of the manner in which he occasionally distracted and turned away from the camera. It is unsettling. A former friend disclosed the information. Chloe boasted in her chats that she was really been prepared for life as a result of her parents were ensuring the will is in my possession. Support. Labels that had been providing her with complimentary products. Emails were sent to her by clothes and checks, rather than using terms like as reputational instead.
Danger, and we are moving in a different direction for guidance. The number of her followers initiated slipping and then falling to the ground. The remarks made her previous posts, which were turned from the heart, her inability to erase emojis in response to questions quick enough to be considered. A tearful video was uploaded by her regarding misunderstandings and hatred committed online. But without the glitzy vacations and the never-ending hauls, the algorithm continued progressing, and so too did her audience remark. Even though all of these were from a different way, I signed the papers that were unfurled. The courtroom was used, ones that are officially made a separation between my financial life and theirs. No longer will anything be shared, not any longer contacts in case of an emergency via their phone, in case something goes wrong. There will be no more backdoors, access to accounts where they are stored safely. Daniel brought the last form to me and slid it across.
As soon as you sign this, they will have the authority to exit without any legal claim to harbor mind or any other properties that are derived from it. Not now, not ever, later on. I felt a brief tremor in my hand, but it was not question, but due to the burden of reducing everything to a final cable that is not visible. After that, I put my signature, and this is the very first time of their it was no longer something to be disappointed about. Either my freedom or my money might be at risk. I briefly thought about relocating to a little apartment in the city of Atlanta initially, in close proximity to where Harbor's small. Already, the crew was operating out of a rented space, workplace that continued to release the odor of paint and new carpet. Grandma Ruth was adamant about not remaining in the mansion. In the midst of the mansion in Savannah being demolished, up for grabs. Therefore, she fit her entire existence into a suitcase. Together with me, I brought a few of luggage. Photograph album of hers put on top of my own, old notebooks and packs of cables are included. To her, I forgot about the expensive furniture and instead took, during the time, the framed photograph of her and Arthur as opposed to the store on the day it opened. I am now deprived of the picture they had of themselves as parents, despite having put forth a lot of effort to complete the job. Shortly after the auction had come to a close, out of town. With the help of distant relatives and various companions, I was warned about the occasional misstep on social media. They were able to reside in a modest rental in Nevada, in search of more affordable rent, and anonymity is maintained. No more charitable galas, no more club memberships, but fewer curated holiday greeting cards printed on thick, glossy paper. It was not a phone call. They did not send an SMS message. If they did, even while they talked about me, it wasn't about me, to my own face. Moreover, for the very first time, I made the decision to allow silence to exist between us, as opposed to something that they were in charge of. As one of the final days before Ruth and Ruth's wedding, I departed from Savannah, and I ventured through the alone in a house that is vacant. The reverberation of silence at the sound of footfall was misplaced in rooms that once was crammed with ornaments and other things, it is noisy. When I entered the den, I stood in the doorway, where I had sat on the floor with somebody in the past, a shabby laptop that Grandpa had in his possession. I asked what was going on by leaning over my shoulder. What did those figures on the screen represent? I could nearly make out the low tones of his voice, saying, "Show me how this helps a humorous tone, guy who is similar to me, Sophie." The walls no longer had the impression that they were mine, our parents' interpretation of our family. Not having the furniture and the illusions that were framed, the location felt empty, like a stage after the performance.
That concludes the show. As the props were removed, audience members have left. There is no performance that, in this location, they had been putting on was finished up. The true legacy that Arthur has left behind, instead of being made of wood and plaster, they were failing to win. The company, the code, and the code itself, I was under the impression that I was never required to petition to be appreciated once more. It had been a while. Years spent using his wealth to construct an image. Over the course of those same years, he had utilized his mind in order to construct a future for me, whereas in the end, their reputation began to deteriorate. What lies ahead for him, I stood. After a period of 4 years, if you had made their way into the office of Harbor Mine if you had been in downtown Atlanta, you would not have. I was able to infer that it began as a side project in addition to a broken laptop, a commitment was made in a will that was so close to being buried. We were able to. There are now glass doors, a logo on the wall, and a group consisting of 50 engineers, analysts, and employees who spend their days providing support, constructing tools for those who appeared to be significantly more similar to my granddad than to friends from the country club that my parents belonged to. Our own platform was beneficial to regional hardware retailers, bakery stores, barber shops, and bodegas on the corner, the list goes on.
keep track of their inventories, demand forecasting, as well as understanding which of their products were truly profitable for them. Whenever there was a storm on the way, and Harbor Mind could let a small coastal shop know precisely how you feel, order a large number of generators. Anytime a bakery wished to know which cupcakes should be discontinued, for our dashboards provided a straightforward response. In linguistics, each and every time a customer called to, you may say something like, "We did not go under this quarter." I heard my voice saying, "Because of your software." I heard grandfather's voice in the manner in which he had stated, "Help the little guys." We sponsored free gatherings, workshops held twice a month, hosting local participants, owners of businesses into our space, so providing them pizza, guiding them through their menu options in a manner that no bank has ever done before. I decided Arthur's name should be added to a scholarship fund for pupils that come from families that are members of the working class who are interested in exploring data or computer scientific research. And on an annual basis, we distributed laptops that have been reconditioned, similar to the save for these which he had purchased for me. In actuality, it took less than 10 minutes to start up. The second year following that, Chloe made contact with me, reading from the will. Initially, there was a lengthy email that had been sitting in my mailbox for some weeks, earlier than I opened it. Her request was not made. Capital. She did not want a shout-out from anyone. Recently, she wrote about how her followers have been dwindling. Her count has reached an all-time low. The dwindling of sponsorships, what had happened to her after she had flown out for journeys to the point where they clock in at a little marketing agency in which nobody was concerned about how many likes she used to receive, but only if she was able to abide by deadlines. To quote her, she had begun working as a volunteer at a community organization facility that teaches fundamentals to young women abilities in the creation of material, but also discussing with them the importance of reading contracts, in addition to not treating their life as if a product that is going to be packed and sold. To her discomfort, she declared that she had been envious of me for a while. The years that Grandpa spent looking at me to watch me due to the fact that he never looked at her for a moment. Like a wound that is open, she did not offer an explanation. The actions that she took. She basically stated that she was, "I am sorry." I gave her a call. The discussion around it lacked flow, was replete with lengthy pauses, and laughter that was hesitant. But we chatted. Not as much as influential figure and sister who was not a parent, but as a pair of women who had all of a sudden ran out of, they are being told who they should be. It was us, not even close. However, the door was not yet open. Instead of being bolted shut, it was cracked open. They never made a phone call. As a result of Granny, it was Ruth and a few other relatives that I heard about. Crumbs of updates here and there. Mark has secured employment, operating a small business with basic bookkeeping duties, away from the East. On the opposite side of the executive, when he used to boast about his level, Alinda remained primarily at home, posting just infrequently online at this point. All the glitz and glamour, in place of furnishings purchased at a bargain and coffee that is generic. It was then that they became a couple that everyone wished they could be with. In order to communicate, people lowered their voices. Pertaining to. Ruth and I constructed our very own private space. In the city of Atlanta, they asserted that the bright blank place in the corner of my living room where she may rock both her knitting and her chair. And each and every evening, we would spend the evenings sitting on the balcony get some takeaway and watch the lights of the city flash. Onward. Some of the time, Mom would share tales with me with regard to Arthur and his younger years when he wasn't even a teenager when he began stocking shelves. In the past, he had no possessions. Some other times, we remained in a relaxed state of silence, the kind that you You should only find someone who has seen you before in your lowest point, and you never once attempted to rewrite you. Some people like to believe that that is the most effective retribution. It's possible that they are correct. However, when I was sitting there with my grandmother, being aware that Harbor Mind was providing families with similar to ours, having a chance to win without whomever needs to steal or lie in order to make money, something more came to my attention as it occurred. The true form of retribution was not the money or the articles in the press or growth charts, respectively. Had the awareness that the component of me that my parents had disregarded as being of little use, the girl with the PC that serves no purpose, obsession, was the component that was responsible for building a life that they were no longer able to touch. The initial instance in which I divulged the entire story, loud to strangers, was performing on a stage in New York City. Within the confines of a crimson circle of light, York, the cameras were aimed at my face, and Ted, emanating from behind me, my palms were the area around the clicker was sweating, but when I first started out, my voice was calm and steady. For me, that was the beginning of everything. When I was reading my grandfather's will, my grandfather would snort. I was given $15 million by my parents, and I was told to earn my own way. They stated that Daddy did not want me to be his. That was not the case. There were appropriate moments for the audience to chuckle, and remained completely silent amid the heavy ones as I guided them through the process. Snorts. Not at all every sloppy detail, yet that is sufficient. The way that it was decided by my family that I was the odd one, the challenging one, the one that didn't quite fit in.
The photograph that they intended to upload. In a low voice, grandfather placed all of his bets on the aspect of me that they attempted to remove. The way corruption and avarice are nearly completely buried. Wager for the long haul. I informed them about the situation. There is a harbor mind. Regarding the shops in the little town, use our tools at this time. Relating to the bakery as a result of the owner crying during a Zoom call because she was afraid that she would drop out of the business. At first, her mother began, but later she stopped. My grandfather's slide was displayed on the wall. Personal handwriting, his thoughts regarding assisting I was able to feel something in my body. Small men, a loosening of the chest that has been tight for decades. I finished, and there was a round of applause, washed over me, and I didn't feel like I was being... It is not so much vindication as it is assurance that his confidence in me had arrived at a certain point. A fact. That evening later on, I was back When I got to my place, I removed the blazer and, whilst wearing heels, I perched on the side of my bed with my grandpa's one and only possession that I now carry. Now, his old wristwatch can be found everywhere. The leather band has a break, and the face has a little bit of a scrape. Then again, when you pop the return open, there is a small photograph of me at the page. 17 standing next to the hackathon project I'm working on. My hair was a mess, and I was smiling like I was about to one who is a fool upon the metal that surrounds it. It had been his one sentence was engraved by someone who was compensated for it. This is the granddaughter. They never did it, though I did understand. I had always believed in. I gave the words a quick swipe with my thumb till this is unclear. For a considerable amount of time, I believed that my parents were the only ones who could help me. Win. Consume their uncertainties in order to coerce them into admitting, when it came to me, they were mistaken. However, somewhere that stage was in between the courthouse and that stage. That was not the point that was being made. The point was that I ceased trying out for the position, those who had already made the decision not to. I am here.
It was important to note that I took the love and faith that I received from an elderly man and resulted in the creation of employment opportunities, scholarships, and opportunities for a second chance for individuals who came from households that were similar to my own. There is a lesson to be learned from what it is this that has occurred. Existing as the unwelcome "you are not unworthy" simply because you are a youngster, in most cases, it simply refers to the individuals in it are either too timid or too vulnerable to be managed where you truly come from. You are not required to. Remain in lodgings that offer the most value for your money. Talk about it. It is permissible for you to form new places with fresh people who are not required to be. Have faith that you are important. Moreover, if you have ever been the Sophia in your family, you're an individual who was ignored, blamed, or eliminated out of the way, I really hope you remember this section. In comparison to the scandal or the money, the one person who believes in you at the appropriate time has the power to alter everything. Remain open to locating that individual and determining when you will be able to be with them for the benefit of someone else.